Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Mind Movement Health podcast. I'm your host, Kate Boyle, and I have a very special guest on the podcast today. Molly, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm really excited to talk to you today.
Well, I'm super excited to have you on because I think the topic of cortisol and stress and regulating our cortisol is super important, especially for women, and something that's kind of coming to light more and more. We're exploring it, but many people might not know, what it's about. So before we do dive into that, can you please introduce yourself to our listeners?
Yeah, absolutely. So, as you said, my name is Molly. So, hello, everyone. And I am the founder of Mfit Workouts, which is an online fitness platform where we do workouts and lifestyle coaching. And as a coach, I specialize in the nervous system and the stress hormones. And the reason I'm so passionate about that topic is because 5 or 6 years ago, I really reached rock bottom with my own health, both my mental health and my physical health. So at that time, my anxiety was out of control. I was having several panic attacks a day, and I did not know why. My life wasn't particularly anxiety inducing. I just felt anxious all of the time. I was also dealing with pretty severe bloating and insomnia, and the cherry on top of all of that was that my weight was completely unpredictable. So I could gain like 20, 30 pounds in a month without changing anything about my lifestyle or my workouts. And that was really confusing to me because I've been a fitness coach for over a decade now. So at the time I was a coach, I was exercising a lot, I was eating ridiculously healthy. So it did not make sense to me why I was struggling so much to maintain my weight. And all of those problems kind of built and built and built until, like I said, I reached rock bottom and I just needed to know what was going on. And I discovered that the reason I was experiencing all of those things is because my stress hormones were imbalanced. And my workout routine and my lifestyle was just making them even more imbalanced. So the things that I was doing that I thought were good for me and making me healthy were actually making it harder for me to look and feel the way that I wanted to. So once I discovered that, I kind of went into Detective Molly mode, and I was like, well, why is this happening? I studied a bunch, I tested a bunch of things, I created a new methodology, and now I'm sharing that methodology with the world because I don't want anyone else to have to experience what I did. As you said, it's pretty trendy and popular right now to talk about stress and hormones, but people still really don't understand how and why stress impacts us so much. We all know that stress is bad for us and that we need to lower our stress, but at the same time, we're still all confused why we're not losing weight. And stress is a really big part of that conversation. So I'm excited to chat today because I think we will be able to clear some things up for people.
Amazing. Well, I think, even listening to your story, a lot of women can definitely relate to that of, feeling like that they're doing all the healthy things and nothing's changed in their, exercise routines or they're eating, and then all of a sudden they're putting weight on and they're thinking, my goodness, what's going on, and then they try some diet that they've seen online and they think that's going to solve it, and they lose a couple of kilos because they've restricted so much, and then it just all comes back. So let's speak about what are our stress hormones and why they're so important.
Yeah, so we'll talk a lot today about cortisol, which is one of your body's main stress hormones. And it honestly plays a part in every organ and tissue in your body. So it has a hand in all of your body's operations, essentially. So it's one of your main stress hormones. And whenever you are stressed, your body is releasing cortisol. And this is a good thing. We want our body to respond that way. But the problem is that nowadays, everything is stressful. Like we're just going from one stressful thing to the next stressful thing in our lives. So our bodies are kind of exhausted and constantly producing cortisol. And this is going to impact your metabolism. It's going to impact your immune system, your blood pressure, your blood sugar, so many things that really affect your health, your mental health, and your ability to lose weight. So one small hormone can impact so many things in your life. And that's why hormones are so frustrating and so confusing for people, because We're usually experiencing a lot of symptoms that seem unrelated, like we're getting chronic infections and we're bloated and we're also gaining weight and we're not sure where everything connects. But a lot of times it connects at your nervous system and your stress and just what your body's kind of been through.
Mm. So if someone's listening and going, oh, this could be like the missing part of why I might not be able to lose weight, how do they know if their cortisol is kind of out of whack?
Yeah, so you can tell a lot with symptoms. Actually, I've never done any special tests myself. I've always known when my hormones are out of whack simply by symptoms that I am experiencing. And there are tons of symptoms that you can experience. So I won't go over every single one right now, but I'll mention a few big ones. So if you're not sure what's going on, I would analyze if you're experiencing any of this. So if you are struggling with sleep, so you're either not able to fall asleep easily, or maybe you're waking up at 3 a.m. every single day, and you're up for a while and feeling wired at that time, that's a big indication that something is up with your stress hormones. Because how your stress hormones work, particularly your cortisol, is your cortisol levels are supposed to be highest in the morning and lowest at night. So if your body is overproducing cortisol, then that means your cortisol levels may be high at night when they're supposed to be down, allowing you to really rest and relax and go to sleep and stay asleep. So if you're not able to go asleep and stay asleep, then something could be up with your cortisol. On a similar vein, if you're feeling tired all day long and then you feel wide awake as soon as you lie down at night, that's a big indication that something could be up with your cortisol. A weird symptom that you may be experiencing is if you're bruising a lot, like if you just see random bruises on your arms and legs, that can be an indication that something is up with your cortisol levels. I realized a few months ago that that's actually a symptom that I had big time. Like I would always wake up with a new bruise on my leg and I'd be like, was I fighting myself in my sleep? What's going on? But that was just, my hormones screaming out to me. And then also, if you notice you're getting sick a lot, that can be a big indication that your cortisol levels are out of whack. So that could mean you go out with friends and you're just always the one who has a cold the next day. Or maybe you're a teacher and you go home with pink eye more often than you would like. Or maybe you're getting chronic UTIs. Even something like that could be an indication that something is up with your immune system. And the reason for that could be because of your cortisol levels.
Mm. So there are a lot of symptoms and it affects
There
our
are.
body in a lot of ways. So can people kind of, self-diagnose, or is it best to sometimes, depending on their symptoms, go off to your GP or visit a hormone specialist?
Yeah, so it's always good to get more information. A lot of what I do in my coaching is holistic, natural, like lifestyle stuff. So it's not dangerous to start working on your hormone balance without having that verified. But there are hormone tests and cortisol tests that you can do. And if you are going to do a test, there's several ways that you can do that. You can get a saliva test, you can do a blood test, you can do a urine test. And I really recommend that you do several of those things, or at least a couple, because as I said, your cortisol levels are supposed to fluctuate throughout the day. So if you're only doing a blood test that gets collected in the morning, that's going to reveal what your cortisol levels are at that time. So it may be valuable for you to do multiple tests so that you can really examine how your cortisol levels are changing throughout the day. So you can go to a hormone specialist, or you can probably talk to your primary care doctor about just how to get those tests, and then they can point you in the right direction. But it's always helpful to get more data, right? But I know some people are scared to start working on their health at all until they've had a doctor tell them something. But a lot of the advice and stuff that I'll share on this podcast and that I share on my platforms is stuff that's safe to do without having things verified. But yeah, you can absolutely get tested. You can self-diagnose with symptoms and do holistic things, or you can get things verified. And your doctor may then recommend something that's less holistic that can help you in a more extreme way.
Mm. Well, as you said, starting off with, some holistic health practices is only going to be beneficial to, lowering your cortisol levels, but probably other areas of your life too. So let's start there. And if, we're listening and thinking, yeah, look, we do have quite high levels of stress and we are experiencing some of those symptoms, where can they start to regulate their cortisol levels?
Yeah, well, first, I definitely want to say, because I have this conversation a lot with my clients, is when I'm encouraging them to introduce new habits into their life and telling them that those habits should lower their stress, they then tell me there's so much stress in my life that I can't get rid of. I'm trying to push this stress away. But I will say stress is unavoidable. There's always going to be stress in your life, and that's okay. The goal of the habits that we'll talk about today are just to break apart the stress in your life. Because as I said, a lot of us are just running from one stressful thing to the next. Like you wake up to an annoying text, and then you hop in your car and someone's driving horribly, and then you hop into a really stressful meeting that you've been worried about for a week. We're just constantly stressed all day long. So what I would encourage you to do is introduce really simple 30-second, 1 minute habits that you can do in between those stressful things just to bring those cortisol levels down if they got elevated in a stressful meeting or something. So something really simple that you could just start with, and everyone can start doing this today, is between phone calls, between meetings, between activities in your day-to-day life, pause and take a deep breath. It can start as simple as that. Or pause and close your eyes for 30 seconds. I find that can be really helpful too, just to like shut out the world for 30 seconds, allow your body to calm down. So that's a really good place to start, of just taking breaks in your day. And I know that can be scary for some people to hear because they're like, I'm way too busy. I don't have time to take breaks in a day, but you definitely have 30 seconds. So if you can take 30 seconds to take 2 really deep breaths where you're inhaling, feeling your stomach expand, exhaling, feeling it collapse, your body is going to be so grateful, because deep breathing is one of the easiest ways to activate your parasympathetic nervous system, which is the part of your nervous system that allows your body to relax and digest. So if your nervous system is always on edge and you're always activating that sympathetic nervous system, which is that stressed out state, just breathing for 30 seconds can help break that apart. So I think that's a really good place for people to start. I don't recommend that you add a bunch of things to your to-do list that you think are going to lower your stress. Like, don't try to meditate for 30 minutes and journal for 30 minutes and go for a 30-minute walk. Trying to do all of that is going to stress you out more because you're stressed about trying to fit that into your day. So as you try to introduce habits into your life, make sure they're habits that are not adding to your stress, because that completely defeats the purpose.
Mm. Well, as you were speaking then, I was thinking, well, when you're driving in the car and you have to stop for a red light, you could very simply, while you stopped at the red light, just do a few slow, deep breaths. Like you're not doing anything else but watching that red light anyway. So that's a good option. And then I was also thinking, every time you think of picking up your phone, stop
Oh,
and do a couple of deep breaths, because that probably, twofold, it would show you, one, how often you're like going straight to that screen. And then two, you'd be getting the benefit of, being conscious around that and then adding in those deep breaths.
yeah, something that I actually recommend all of my clients start with is whenever you get a notification on your phone, fix your posture. And it's just like, it's going to help you stand up taller so you can breathe deeper. And it's just allowing you to have a little break before you, again, as you said, jump into screen time. So yeah, I'm totally aligned with that. Like, take a deep breath before you pick up your phone, fix your posture before you pick up your phone. It's really nice to just add habits to how you currently live your life. Like, if you drink coffee every morning, can you just like massage your neck as you drink your coffee? As you brush your teeth, can you like stretch out your hips some instead of trying to force yourself to add a 30-minute walk to your day? Can you just like walk in place as you text a friend? Like, can you multitask your habits a bit?
It definitely helps, like, especially with, as you were sort of saying before, when you feel that you're too busy to add anything else in, that you really feel like your plate is just too full, finding places where you can just do that sort of simple multitask can be really just beneficial. Like you said, even if you're just standing there, I say to my clients, please, stretch out your quads, your front of your hips, at least once a day. And you can do that while you're in a meeting or taking a call, or, it doesn't matter when you do it, even if you want to do it whilst you're doing something else.
Yeah, the nature of what you see online and in media with fitness is you have to do like all of this stuff, right? You have to go to the gym, you have to go to yoga class, you have to do all of these things, but really it's so underrated just taking 30-minute stretch breaks or 30 minutes to breathe in your day. Like that is so impactful for your body's hormones. And then as a result, even your weight loss. Like sometimes going to the gym for an hour is preventing you from losing weight, but just like stretching for 30 seconds may help you. Like our bodies like to, have like be cared for, not be tortured. So taking those little breaks is going to help you in so many ways. Even though it seems so small and insignificant, it's so powerful.
And I want to circle back to cortisol and weight loss. And how does cortisol sort of impact our ability to lose weight?
Yeah, I would say there are kind of 5 main ways cortisol is affecting your body's ability to lose weight. And that's how cortisol affects your metabolism, your food choices, your gut health, your sleep, and your mental health. So all 5 of those things affect how you're able to lose weight. And I'd be happy to dive deeper onto each of those topics if you want.
Sure. Let's go into that, because I think it's one of those areas like we were sort of saying before, when we think of losing weight, we think of the things that we have to do. We have to eat well, we have to exercise, but we don't think that stress is playing a big part in that.
Exactly. Yeah. So one thing that you hear a lot when you're trying to lose weight is your metabolism. That's like a word that people hear often, like, oh, I have a slow metabolism, so my body's not able to lose weight, that kind of thing. And if your body is stressed and if your body is overproducing cortisol, that is going to slow down your metabolism, because when your body is stressed out, its job is to protect you. That is what it is supposed to do, and it's great that it does that. But in an attempt to protect you, it is going to have you burn fewer calories. It's going to have you conserve more energy. It's not going to let you digest food as easily because it doesn't think you have time to. It doesn't think it's safe to. It thinks that it needs to protect you. So if your body is constantly stressed and you're living in this chronically stressed out state, your body is going to burn fewer calories just at rest. That is going to happen. So if you can start to remove some of that stress from your body is then going to be able to relax and get out of that let me protect this body mode and allow you to enter that fat burning mode that you really want to be in when you are trying to lose weight. So metabolism is a big thing when it comes to your stress, but as is your food choices. So if your cortisol levels are high, you are going to crave sugary, fatty foods. That's just what you are going to want because that's what your hormones are telling you that you want. Women especially know this. Like as you go through your cycle, you may notice that there are cravings at certain parts of your cycle, and that's because your hormones are asking for that. So if your hormones are imbalanced all the time, that means they're going to be asking for those unhealthy foods more often. And if you are actively trying to lose weight and you're fighting those cravings, that's going to stress you out. Or if you're giving in to those cravings, and that's going to prevent you from really being able to lose weight because you're not eating super healthy. So food choices are a big thing that cortisol can impact. Same with gut health. So if you're stressed, you're probably going to notice you're bloated more often. And if you're bloated a lot and you're trying to lose weight, that's going to be so discouraging because you're not going to be able to see the results that you're working so hard for. You're just going to see that you're bloated every day. And that may then discourage you from continuing with your workouts or your diet or whatever you're doing. But also if you're stressed, and especially if you're eating stressed, you're going to have a difficult time absorbing the nutrients in your food. So let's say you're trying to build muscle and you're trying to eat a high protein diet because you want to build muscle, and you're eating a bunch of protein and you're stressed out while you're eating, your body may not absorb that protein as fully as you want it to. So it may kind of go to waste. So one thing you can do for that is do some deep breathing before meals. We were talking about breathing in your car, breathing whenever. Breathe before meals. Like if you can take 2 deep breaths before you pick up your fork, your body's going to be so much happier. But so that's a big one. And then also sleep. So sleep and cortisol kind of feed each other. If your cortisol levels are high, you're not going to sleep well. But also if you're not sleeping well, that's going to make your cortisol levels like be high as well. So it's just going to be this vicious cycle. And if you're not sleeping, your body's not recovering from your workouts. You're not getting, the proper rest and recovery that you need for your body to function the way you want it to. So your body's going to have a tough time losing weight if you're not sleeping and if you're stressed and if your gut health's a mess. It's just all going to kind of feed each other and make it really hard for your body to do what you want it to. Because like I said before, when your body is stressed, it's trying to protect you. It's not trying to help you lose weight. It's trying to get you through your stressful situation. So if you can start to heal some of that, then your body is going to respond better to the things you're actively doing to try to lose weight.
And, like you were saying, everything is interconnected. I know for myself years ago when I had issues with fructose sort of intolerance and a little bit of IBS stuff, once I addressed my stress, a lot of those symptoms just disappeared. So stress was a massive influence on my gut health, bloating, frequency of going to the toilet, all of these things. And then once I started lowering stress, gut health was more repaired. I could just digest food better. I didn't find that I kind of got rid of those intolerances. They weren't full-blown allergies, so a little bit different to an allergy, but just those intolerances completely settled down. So it's one of those things, though, it's not often people address the stress first. They tend to start to address other things, and then that comes last.
Yeah, the nature of healthcare is it's a lot of band-aid fixes where you're just focusing on the symptoms and trying to fix the symptoms, but really you want to get to that root issue, which is often stress. And again, the goal is not to remove all stress from your life. This is literally impossible. But if you can do these things where you're just breaking apart the stress in your life and trying to set boundaries and be aware of how your body is feeling, then that can really help a lot of things. Yeah, it's like I said before, everyone knows stress is bad, but then we're also like, why am I constipated? Why do I have this intolerance? Why do I get migraines? Why do I XYZ? But if we can get to that root issue and start to be a little bit kinder to our nervous system, a lot of those things, as you saw firsthand and as I've seen firsthand, can definitely go away or improve drastically.
And it's about having, I guess, the sort of the tools in your toolbox to help you build that stress resilience so that when you do have those stressful situations, you're not experiencing as many of those symptoms that may occur because you've been, utilizing your breath work or your meditation or, whatever it may be to help lower your overall stress levels or regulate it.
Absolutely. You are right. And it's like if you're in this place where your body is way overrun by cortisol and stress is consuming you, there are also just going to be things that you really can't do because they're going to add to your stress. Like you can't really go run a marathon when your body is consumed by stress because it's just going to feel overwhelming. But even things like that, like you're going to find your physical abilities and the stuff you're capable of are also improving as stress goes down. And that does, as you said, have to do with how you're preparing for stress and how you're handling it. And all of this stuff can help with that.
And you've mentioned the marathon because I'm thinking as you're saying that a lot of people would still push through and still do the marathon anyway. So let's segue to exercise because exercise can help, but it can also hinder. So can you share, when it comes to exercise and cortisol, what do we need to be aware of?
Yeah, and you are exactly right. I actually had a conversation last week or the week before with my best friend who is having some hormone problems and actively training for a marathon. And I'm like, well, I would really recommend you not do this. And she's like, but I'm signed up. And I'm like, okay, then you need to work on other lifestyle things to help with this. But so if you are someone who's like, I've signed up for a marathon, I'm doing it, and my stress is a mess, but I'm still doing it, then, focus on the lifestyle things more than the workout right now if you're not willing to adapt. But if you are able to adapt your workouts, if you are dealing with a cortisol problem, you really want to be avoiding those highly intense workouts that are pushing you to your absolute max. So whether that's a really, really long endurance run or a really intense high intensity workout or a CrossFit class where you're throwing around the heaviest weights that you possibly can, doing those highly intense workouts are trendy and popular because we all think, oh, these workouts are going to burn more calories. They're going to burn more fat. But what we don't realize is if they are doing that, that means they're also stressing out your nervous system more than other workouts do as well. So if your nervous system is already kind of on the edge of a cliff, being like, I'm kind of overwhelmed, and then you make it do a 30-minute HIIT workout, it's going to jump off that cliff and make you feel horrible. So you really want to be kinder to your body in your workouts when you are having hormonal issues. You want to focus on more moderate intensity workouts, more muscle-based workouts instead of cardio-based workouts, and breathing. So a lot of times when people can't lose weight, and I see this a lot with my clients who are in perimenopause, is they can't lose weight. So then they're like, I need to do more cardio. I need to do more workouts. I need to do more. But actually doing more is going to make it harder for you to lose weight and see the things that you want to see happening with your body if hormones are the issue. So if you're currently doing nothing and you have no hormonal problems, then sure, you need to do more. But if you have hormonal issues and you are already doing stuff, doing more is not going to be the solution. Working smarter and dialing it back is actually going to be what makes your hormones most happy. And one rule of thumb that I have for people, if they are stressed and they have cortisol dominance in their body, I want you to feel energized after every workout you do. And if you don't, find a different workout. That's kind of the very basic rule of thumb that I give people. If you start a workout and you're feeling tired, that's fine. If you end a workout and you feel more awake and more energized, that's what we want. But if you are feeling completely tired, like you need a nap, like you need to lie down after you finish a workout, that is not what your cortisol needs right now.
I think that's great advice too, because I think our bodies, or we know they change over time as our hormones change and as we get older. But I will say I still sometimes encounter the women that have been doing the CrossFit workout for the last 15 years or running for the last 20 years, and things are changing and they're getting sick more often or injured more often, or, they've put that little bit of weight on, when nothing has changed, but they're very resistant into changing anything about what they've been doing to this point, because it's almost like an addiction. They've been doing it for so long that they feel like if they don't do it, then they might be a failure or their body won't cope. And so what advice do you have for those women?
Yeah, so if you are one of those people, I relate to you so much. I was you before, but here's what I would say is if you do have this, as you said, like addiction to exercise, like this addiction to kind of pushing yourself to your limits, the same way I would tell someone not to jump like headfirst into something, like doing too much, you don't have to dial it back significantly right away, but dialing it back a little can be helpful. So maybe for those people who like to push themselves to an extreme, but they're starting to feel kind of sick, can you swap out just one workout? So where you may run every single day, one of those days, can you do Pilates or yoga or some light strength training? Can you switch just one day? Or if switching a day seems overwhelming, can you shorten your workouts so that they aren't as long? So you don't have to make drastic changes, but can you make a slight change? And just changing things slightly and starting to dial it back a little bit at a time is actually a really good strategy for someone like that, because you may then find, oh, I dialed it back like 3 notches and that was enough for me. You may not actually need to dial it back extremely, but just limiting your workouts slightly, ever so slightly. But also, to those people, there needs to be some mindset things happening too. And I say that with all the love because, like I said, I used to be you. I used to be extremely addicted to exercise, but I had to change my ways because it was too extreme, too unhealthy. So you kind of have to start to reframe your mindset around, well, why am I doing this? Do I really have fun while I'm doing this workout? Like, is this really enjoyable? Or do I think I need to like earn my food? Or do I think I need to pay for doing something in my life? Like, what is the purpose of the workout? And like, start to ask yourself some of those deeper questions of like, what's my reason for doing this workout? Why do I think I need to push my body this hard? And if it's hard for you to ask yourself those questions, that's where it's really helpful to just speak to someone who kind of has experience in that realm, either personal experience or professional experience, to help you kind of navigate your feelings around exercise and movement. I hope that answered that question.
Yeah, I just think I know I've worked with a few clients over the years, and I can see, we need to make some changes, but they're very resistant to making those changes because they've grown so accustomed to it being part of their routine and almost part of their identity, that if they don't do that, then they're almost a bit lost of, who they are then. If I can't say I'm the runner that runs marathons, then, and again, it's going into, that sort of exploring that sort of self and processing the mindset and everything, as you were sort of saying. I just do think it is something that, it can hit women in midlife, and they're kind of not aware of it until things start to go wrong.
Yeah, exactly. And I've worked with a lot of women like that too, or especially I work with people that have then reached like a rock bottom place, like they've injured themselves running, or their body's just really rejecting everything they do because of their hormones, and then now their body's crying for help, so they're listening. So hopefully people don't have to get to that place where their body is absolutely shattered and now they need to make changes. But it is so tough because, as you said, so many people view this as like their purpose, their part of their identity, part of like what they need to do. And a lot of that comes down to like what we learned in childhood. I mean, a lot of people who have interesting relationships with food have had interesting relationships with food since they were little girls. So a lot of it is so ingrained and so hard to break out of. But coming from someone who used to have those extremist behaviors, I truly think just making very small changes is a good place to start. Like, it doesn't have to be, oh, I can never run again and this is the end of the world. It can just be, okay, instead of going for my normal run today, I'm gonna jog and walk. Or just tweaking things slightly, ever so slightly, and then start to notice how your body feels after those small tweaks. Do you actually feel more energized and happier and better? And then really lean into trying to feel that way instead of feeling like, oh, I won because I did this workout, or like, oh, I did something right because I pushed myself really hard. Like, focus on those other feelings that you may feel after a workout. Like I said, like joy, relief, energy, like, do you feel those things? So make small tweaks and start to analyze how you feel after those workouts. And then really, easier said than done, but try to seek like that energy and that calm and that happiness after your workout instead of torture.
Yeah, well, I think that's great advice. And I wanted to ask too about lifting weights, because I think a lot of women get scared about lifting weights, and they think that if they start lifting weights, well, that's going to push the number on the scale up. And that's not what they're aiming for. They want it to go down. So what advice do you have for women that maybe haven't done a lot of weight workout, but are struggling to lose weight and thinking that it may be something they need to explore?
Yeah, weight training is really important. Like, especially as we age, like our muscle mass starts to decrease. So you want to be training your muscles so that you can prevent that, so that you don't just have excess body fat in place of muscle. Like you want to be training those muscles. A lot of people are scared of weight training because they also see what it looks like online. Like they see people doing powerlifting and lifting heavy weights and doing crazy stuff on like crazy machines, but it doesn't have to look like that. I would really encourage anyone who is having a tough time getting themselves to start working their muscles and doing strength training is just start with body weight. Start with resistance bands. Start with light weights. It does not need to be super heavy. And if you do have that fear of I'm going to gain weight or get bulky or get big if I lift weights, then I'll tell you this, it is so hard to get big. It is so hard for those bodybuilders to look the way they do. You're not just going to magically be able to get huge. Arnold Schwarzenegger had to work very hard to make that happen. So it's not going to happen for you unless you are eating an insane amount of protein and lifting an insane amount of weights and doing this a lot. So don't have that fear of getting big because that's not going to happen. And if it's encouraging to anyone, I am 5 feet tall. And when I was lifting my heaviest, I was also my smallest. So if that's just an encouraging thing to hear for someone to hear, then there's that for you. But if the fear is around just like, it's foreign, it's new, it looks kind of scary, like everything I do in my business is at home strength workouts. You don't even got to go to a gym. You don't even need equipment, but you can work your muscles in a lot of different ways. It doesn't have to look like that stereotypical weightlifting that you see, professional bodybuilders doing. You don't have to be a professional bodybuilder. You just got to be you.
Hmm. Well, I'm, keep encouraging women, especially as they sort of start to hit that sort of perimenopause age and hormones are starting to get out of whack. And then also, to prevent osteoporosis and, loss of bone too, that weight, lifting some sort of weight, if whether or not, as we said, it's working with resistance bands or springs or your body weight, but doing some type of, resistance training is super important for muscles and bones and hormones as we age.
Yeah, exactly. And another side effect of high cortisol levels is you're more prone to osteoporosis. So people who have hormonal issues, it is really important that you're lifting weights because those hormones are already kind of making it tougher for your muscles and your bones. So you really do want to be protecting yourself. Like you always hear those news stories about some 80-year-old woman who just did some crazy fitness thing. And I don't know about you, but I want to be that woman. So I'm going to make sure that I am going to continue to take care of my muscles as I age just because I don't want to be useless. So training those muscles is good for life. It's good for appearance and it's good like for so many things in your health.
I agree. And we've talked a lot about, high cortisol levels, but we haven't necessarily talked about low cortisol levels. And I know it's probably not as common as high cortisol, but what are the detrimental effects if our cortisol is too low?
Yeah, so any hormonal imbalance is not great because your hormones are like a whole team. They work together. So if one is high or one is low or one's just being funky, all your other hormones are going to react. So it's like if you're at a party with a bunch of friends and then one friend starts acting weird, all of the vibes of everyone else kind of gets tainted. The same happens with your hormones. So if your cortisol levels are low, as you said, it's not as talked about, it's not as common, but it still is just as important. And if your cortisol levels low, they start to feel depressed. You may not have quite as much of an appetite. You may experience brain fog and fatigue, and you're going to have a really difficult time handling stressful situations. Like your body's just not really going to know how to cope or what to do. So if you're noticing any of those symptoms, maybe your cortisol levels are actually low. So you do want to take care of your hormones, whatever end of the spectrum they're on. And as I said before, your cortisol levels are supposed to fluctuate throughout the day. So there are going to be times in the day when your cortisol levels are lower, times when they're higher, but you want them to be fluctuating, and you want them to be fluctuating in the correct way. Otherwise, your mental health and your physical health and your other hormones will suffer. So it's important to note that too. Like if your cortisol levels are low, that is something that you need to take care of as well. In this world where we're all talking about high cortisol and how that's dangerous, the answer to that isn't to remove cortisol from our body. The same way where it's like, if you are over exercising right now, the answer is not to stop exercising. It's just, we need to find balance in our hormones and in our lifestyle. So that's where hormone testing can be really helpful, or tracking with your symptoms and having these conversations can be really important, because you do need to have a hand on those hormones regardless of if they're high or low.
Well, yes, I just wanted to bring that up because I know, a lot of people, probably more often than not, the cortisol is high because of stress and all these other things, but it can also be the reverse. And I don't think we hear as much about low cortisol levels. It's just we tend to hear about the high ones.
Yeah, exactly. And if your stress is really high and you're stressed all day, every day, we do talk about how your cortisol levels are then going to be high, but also your body can start to get depleted. It can say, I can't produce any more cortisol. And then that's when your cortisol levels start to be chronically low. So stress itself also causes low cortisol, the same way stress causes high cortisol. And I know that's way confusing to hear as a listener. And I know that it is a complicated topic, but like I said, whatever hormone you're trying to work on, these really simple, holistic habits like drink water, get fresh air, do some deep breathing. These things can really help support all of those hormones, whether they are high or low. But it is important to know what's going on and to know to take care of yourself.
And in our conversation today about cortisol balance and imbalance, is there anything that we haven't really talked about that you'd like to highlight to our listeners as well?
Oh my gosh, there's so much to talk about, right? I'm like, okay, we've really hit the big points that I wanted to enforce to people. But with cortisol imbalance, I do think in this world, we're all talking about hormones. We are all freaked out about hormones. This is a conversation that's happening a lot. But just know that taking care of your stress is going to help with those things. But I guess one thing I do want to say is a lot of us view stress as one basic thing. We view it as, I had an annoying conversation with my landlord. My boss has been annoying me. A stressful thing is happening in my life. But there are also a lot of ways that you can be stressed that aren't that obvious picture of stress. You could have an infection you don't know about that is causing your body to feel stressed internally. You could have hormonal imbalances, which we've talked all about. Environmental things like the products you use and the air quality of your town can all impact the stress in your body. So it's also important to be aware of those things. So if you find you feel really stress in your body seems to be really high, you're experiencing all of these things, but you just cannot think of why, because life isn't stressful right now and you're doing everything to calm down your life, then it may be valuable for you to look at those other things, like I said, the products you're using, or talk to your doctor to see if there is some hidden infection happening. That's actually something that happened to me. I was having a lot of digestive issues and I did some gut testing and I realized that there was this bad bacteria in my gut, and that is why I was feeling anxious and sick to my stomach. So you may find that there are random things in your body and in your life that are causing stress. And again, I'm not saying that to scare you, just to raise awareness of you want to be conscious of those things as well.
Mm. And I think as well, that made me think of a few clients recently that have been unwell or they've had a surgery and so they've recovered from their surgery and they think that they should be able to like get back to normal super quick. And then they're sort of saying, but I'm still tired. I still feel fatigued. I don't have as much energy to do these things. And so I feel like people think they should get over things super quickly. And it's not always the case. There needs to be time to heal. And sometimes that time of healing is longer than, say the physical scar has healed or we've gotten rid of that virus. It's gone, but our body is still healing and we still have to allow time for that too, because it's still stress that's happening in the body that we might not be able to visually see, but things are happening as they're healing.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And also, like, when you're healing from an injury, let's say, we all know, okay, I need to elevate and ice my ankle because I hurt it, and this is what my recovery journey is. But since that injury also stressed out your body, you do need to be doing those things like getting fresh air, doing deep breathing, that stuff too, to bring balance back to your nervous system and your hormones. So we do focus on one part of our healing journey, whether we are sick or injured or all of that stuff. And then, like you said, we all think we should bounce back quickly, but we're also skipping a big part of that healing journey, which is how are we treating the stress that was created in our body because of that illness or that injury.
Mm. So everybody listening in, take a little bit more time and have a little bit more self-compassion and do a bit more self-care for a bit longer than even you think you should be doing.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And as you heal, do things for your mental health as well. Don't just focus on healing the body and the ailment. Also focus on being kind to your mind and your nervous system as you heal.
And before we finish up, I always love to ask my guests that if there is one piece of health advice that you could give to our listeners that they could go off and instigate straight away after listening to this podcast, what would it be?
That is such a fun question because I feel like that is what I do most in my business is I try to give people things that they can do right away and include in their life. So I would love to give your listeners a tip on building habits. So I touched on this earlier, but I want to reiterate it now. And if you are trying to build a habit, add it to something that you're doing in your life. Don't try to add a bunch of things to your to-do list. Just try to multitask what you're already doing now. And I want to challenge you to do one of those things because it's what I started doing in my life. So something I started doing is called productivity walks. So I run a business and I talk to my clients and my groups every single day. So I know I'm going to have to be on my phone and I just say, why not walk or go outside while I talk on my phone? So how can you multitask a certain activity that you have to do every day? Can you go outside and walk while you scroll through social media? Or can you just sit outside while you scroll through social media? And the answer is probably yes, because I imagine all of us, at least, even if it's not work, we waste a lot of time on our phones. So can you waste time on your phone outside next time that you're on your phone? That is what I would challenge your listeners. Can you spend a little bit more time outside?
Amazing. I love that. And I think too, even if you take your phone with you outside and you go on it, you may then get off it earlier because you may be noticing, oh, how lovely it is, or the birds, or whatever else. And it may motivate you to then do some movement. So I think even just that little small change can have a flow-on effect to cause changes in the next things you do.
Yeah, we love something that has a trickle effect and it starts off super easy and then it becomes easier to do other things.
Agree. Now, where can our listeners reach out and connect with you and work with you as well?
Yeah, well, thank you for asking me that. And again, thank you for having me on. This conversation was so fun. But if you were listening to this and you related to this conversation, then one of the best places you can start is I've actually written a free ebook that I would love to give your listeners. And it's all about mastering your stress hormone practical tips to help you really understand how and why your body is producing cortisol. It's going to help you identify if your body is producing too much cortisol and teach you exactly how to adjust your lifestyle and workouts to support your stress hormones. So in that ebook, it teaches you all the strategies that have helped my clients start losing weight after battling with cortisol for years. So if you want that, it is on my website, which is just my name, mollymcnamee.com/cortisol, or you can message me the word cortisol on Instagram and I'll get it over to you. But that's really going to be the best place for you to start if you related to this conversation, and it'll just get you into my world so that you can also get all of my free tips that I send out in my emails once a week and on my Instagram.
Amazing. Well, we'll link that all up in the show notes too. So listeners, you can head over to the show notes as well and click the links there. But otherwise, thank you for coming on the podcast today, Molly. I think this is such a great and relevant topic to share. And I've really enjoyed it.
Me too. Thank you so much.